Okay, we are officially live. So, should we begin? Hi, sorry, technical difficulties. Um,
Sorry.
uh, we are still live. Sorry, it just kicked me out, so that was interesting. Technology and all its amazing things. Okay, I think we've had our one bad luck start. Now we're good to go, I believe. So let's try again. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Oluchiwonsu, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Imo State Union Youth, ISUY. ISUY is the youth division of Imo State Union, an established body of Imo State elders and community leaders committed to promoting unity, culture, and development among the Imo and broader Igbo communities. We were created to give the younger generation a platform to engage, learn, and lead, ensuring that the vision and values of the elders continue to thrive across generations. At ISUY, our mission is to preserve and promote Igbo culture, heritage, and identity, particularly amongst young people in the diaspora. We believe that by connecting today's youths to our tradition, histories, and collective memory, we build a stronger, prouder, and more united Igbo future. As part of this mission, we have launched the Onye series, a cultural education initiative that brings together scholars, cultural leaders, and the broader community to explore critical aspects of Igbo history, culture, and experience. Each session is designed to spark dialogue, deepen understanding, and inspire the next generation of Igbo thinkers, creators, and leaders. Today's session, focusing on Igbo history and heritage, is a continuation of that commitment. It is an opportunity for us to listen, to learn, and to engage meaningfully with the knowledge and insights shared by our distinguished panelists. Thank you for being part of this important conversation. Together, we honor our ancestors, preserve our heritage, and inspire the future. Before we begin this session, I would like to take a moment to properly recognize and honor the distinguished scholars who have joined us for this important conversation. We are privileged to welcome four remarkable individuals who have each in their own field contributed significantly to the understanding, preservation, and advancement of Igbo and African history and heritage. First, we have Professor Christian Chukwuma Opata. Professor Opata is a renowned scholar from the Department of History and International Studies at the University of Nigeria in Nsukka. His extensive research on African cultures, especially the Igbo heritage, has shaped much of what we know today. Professor Opata is widely published in reputable journals and is deeply respected for his dedication to preserving and interpreting Igbo traditions for academic and wider audiences alike. Next, we have Dr. Chinedu Nemeka Mbalisi. Dr. Mbalisi is a senior lecturer at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University and an expert in political and social cultural history. He has contributed richly to the scholarship on African political and urban history and currently serves as the editor of the Kenneth Decay Journal of African Studies. His work deeply explores the intersections of Igbo history, culture, and contemporary African studies. We also warmly welcome Dr. Uchenna Ani. Dr. Annie is a distinguished academic who lectures at the Alex Ekweme Federal University and also serves as an adjunct lecturer at Godfrey Okoye University. He specializes in African social and political history with a wide ranging research covering nationalism, independence, and development studies in Africa. His contributions to curriculum development and scholarly publishing further enrich the academic landscape of the Igbo and African history. And finally, we have Dr. Apex Ape. Dr. Ape, a respected historian from the University of Nigeria in Nsukka, specializes in African history, culture, cultural studies, and gender relations. His published works, including the important book Idoma Igala Igbo Relations Studies in Frontier Igbo Society, explore the complexities and connections among African people, highlighting the dynamic nature of Igbo identity and cultural frontiers. Each of these scholars bring with them a unique perspective, a deep commitment to knowledge, and an unrelenting passion for preserving our collective story as Indibo. On behalf of Imo State Union Youth, our elders, and all our participants today, I say a heartfelt dalo, no, and welcome. We are honored by your presence and excited for the wisdom you're about to share. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
so, Perfect. So now that we've met our
Thank
individual,
you very much, Oluchi.
thank you very much, sir. Now that we've met our incredible panelists, let's take a moment to set the scene. Before we dive into today's main discussion, we'll start by hearing from Dr. Christian Opata about early history of the Igbo people, where we come from, how we moved, and how our foundations were built long before colonial times. This will help give us the right context as we explore the bigger questions around our heritage and history. Dr. Opata, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Oluchi. Thank you for this vision. Yes, Igbo studies is very important, especially now. Let me borrow from Mokugo Koye. Mokugo Koye said that the Igbo are turning to become homeless and hybrid, in the sense that we are forgetting our heritage. We are borrowing from others and gesturing what we have. And I believe your program is a step in the right direction of reclaiming that our heritage. Having said that, talking of the Igbo as a people, we had a past, and we still have a past. I would like to approach this from several fronts. One, who are the Igbo and where are they found? From a point of view of geography. The Igbo are found mainly in Nigeria and in what they call southeastern Nigeria. They are still found in south, especially west of the River Niger. Then even up to the Benue and Kogi, we still have Igbo. But predominantly, the Igbo are found in the 5 major states that form the southeast geopolitical zone of Nigeria. These people called Igbo, they had their culture. And in terms of their culture, first, their worldview. In Igbo worldview, or what people call the axiology, first, you see that the Igbo believe in the existence of ontological categories. We don't believe that actually the earth is occupied by men and animals. There are beings that we believe in that control and regulate our activities. And the fear of those beings went a long way in moderating our character. It is kept instituting sincerity among the Igbo, because there is something, a force you are fearing, that if you delved into, if you cheated somebody, there is a force that will strike you. Then the Igbo believed in hard work and excellence. And the belief in hard work and excellence among the Igbo went a long way in establishing what we today see as part of our heritage. Like in Igbo land, one of the popular lecture series is the Ahajoku lecture. Ahajoku or Njoku or anything here or whatever term is used for has to do with the relationship between the economy and religion, the religious worldview of the people and the economy. And the economy in this case, agriculture specifically. So we had a lot as our past and our heritage, which we are supposed to be proud of. So let me stop here for now and give room for others to react to the issue.
Perfect. Thank you, Doctor. Would anyone else like to give us a brief understanding of our history and where we come from? Dr. Ape, would you like to help us with that?
Okay. Thank you, Oluchi. You see, the issue of the Igbo history, every Igbo person is interested in where are we coming from. Because you see, there is this Igbo adage, or that says that someone was beaten by the rain. He ran and somebody gave him shelter. In course of making fire to warm the person, asked him, from where did the rain start beating you? He said, I don't know. Then he said, you should leave my hut because you will never even remember who gave you shelter while the rain was beating you. So it is very important for us here to say, oh, where are we coming from? It is fashionable, most Nigerian ethnic groups have noted from where they are coming from, whether true or false. But the issue is that there is an agreed place from where they come from. And for the case of the Igbo, they are not left out because really there are three opinions.
Yes.
From where the Igbo come from. The earliest one was the fact that the Igbo was founded by Eri. Where did Eri come from? That Eri was dropped down on this location by Chukwuabiama from heaven with the wife. And on arriving the earth, they discovered the whole environment was marshy. They beckoned on Chukwuabiama for help, and Chukwuabiama invited the Oka blacksmith, who came and made bellows and ride the earth. Have you seen we are coming from heaven? Then, this first hypothesis. The other one said, oh, I think that one was popularized, or in fact started by Olaudah Equiano in his interesting narratives, published in 1787, 89, that we are Jews. Because Olaudah, an Igbo slave, captured at the age of 13, sold into slavery, lived to buy his freedom, has read widely and found that several aspects of the Igbo culture is related, is similitude with that of those of the Jews. And he now suggests that the Igbo must have come from Israel, an offshoot. Yeah, it was be the offshoot of the Jews. This continued, and earliest colonial anthropologists, Basden and all of them, Jeffries, they carried this along and said, oh, we are the Jews in Nigeria. But one thing is clear here in this second hypothesis. Some of those cultural traits that he feels that are practiced in Igbo land as well as in Israel, you'll find some of them among the Igala. You'll find some among the Jews, among the Doma. You'll find some among the Yoruba, the Edo, and all this. So it was not a exclusive preserve of the Igbo people, right? So that's another, as I explained, this is the second notion or hypothesis, explain the Igbo origin. But lastly, we have what we call now the Niger-Benue confluence theory. And one good thing about this theory is that it was not propounded, or it was not propounded or advanced by a historian working on Igbo land or any other Nigerian groups, but was by Professor J.H. Greenberg working on the classification of African languages. And from such classification, he was able to posit that the Igbo, Idoma, Igala, Edo, Yoruba, Efik, even Akan in Ghana, that all of them were once living at the Niger-Benue confluence area. And these languages belong to one language group, the Kwa group of the Niger-Congo classification. And that these languages and the peoples had been warned in distant past, that it was as a result of probably population explosion around the area that most of them began to migrate away from the Niger Benue confluence zone. And as a result of time, the languages began to change gradually until they became dialects, from dialects to distinct languages. In what the linguist talks about the lexical statistics and all this, that this lexical chronology, that this language has been won. Last to separate was Yoruba and Igala, to the extent that today an Igala cannot be fully confused by Yoruba language, or neither can the Yoruba person who understands Yoruba to be confused with Igala, because they are very close. And even when one checks, you'll find out that from the languages, you have certain things that bear the same name. That is the same word, the same diction, like the stone today. You'll find them as Ukuta in Igbo, in Igala, showing that these people had been born in their primordial Kwa language, that was called the called stone. And as a result of the separation over time, the languages began to. Sometimes you find relationship with what people call this and call their neighbors, like they do the Igbo. You find similitude in these languages and in the diction of the people with regard to certain items. But even the Edo too, we know that even after the dispersion from the Niger-Benue confluence area, that these people had still recourse with those, the Igbo of the West Niger area, that most of them living today continue to say, oh, we come from Edo Kingdom and all this. But one thing is clear, that most of these Nigerian peoples has continued to say, oh, we came from Israel, like the Igbo. But for the Yoruba and the Edo, they say we came from Egypt. And remember that these three belong to the Kwa group. Then even the the Hausa Fulani, you find that, oh, they came from Baghdad. Then you find out that what is this interest in having to find our place of origin from outside? It is fashionable looking at Africa. Where else? Are we going to say we came from the Atlantic Ocean? Are we going to say we came from the Sahara? It's not fashionable. By the
I think we may have lost Dr. Ape, but he was giving us a good overview of all the histories. Oh dear.
It's like he's coming back.
Yes, it is. Um, would any one of you like to finish for him? Is there any more to add on
Well,
that?
well, many will like, but let me hear others because there are controversies already raised from what he discussed, which I already discussed with you before now. But let me hear from others because there are a lot of controversies that will repudiate most of those solutions.
Yes.
All right. Dr. Mbalisi, you're laughing. So can we hear some of the controversies that you're on mute, sir? Dr. Mbalisi, you're on mute.
You're on mute. Unmute yourself.
yeah.
Dr. Mbalisi, unmute yourself.
Perfect.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've done that now. So yeah,
Perfect.
sorry about that.
No
I
problem.
think part of the problem we have is the fact that we believe that, like many other histories, the Igbo history is one that is shrouded in a lot of controversies. You know, and like Professor Ape was actually pointed out, he actually touched the three basic hypotheses that have been, used by various African scholars to explain the origins of the Igbo. The truth is, as of today, we believe that many scholars have made frantic efforts in resolving this identity crisis as to where the Igbo people are from. What he has mentioned is the three known hypotheses. One is what they call the Oriental hypothesis, all right, which is the view that the Igbo, from all indication, did not come from anywhere from Africa. They migrated from outside of Africa. Many people view the Igbo as being external to the African society. Either they are from the Jews or from Egypt or whatever they call it, the Hamitic hypothesis. Whatever that is, there are instances and points trying to trace the Igbo from outside of Africa. Many scholars have always believed this, and this is one controversial attack by Professor Pei was trying to raise. Another is what we call the autochthonous theory, or what we call the homeland hypothesis. One of the books I was reading, apart from mentioning the fact that Alade Equiano in his intestinative through a draft Darkling has recorded in also recorded in Adela Fibo's book. I think the homeland hypothesis is the fact that they believe that the Igbo did not migrate from anywhere. In fact, if you read Elizabeth Ishiche's The History of Igbo People, you see it at the opening sentence. If anybody tells you that the Igbo came from anywhere, it's a lie. Write it down. That we did not migrate from anywhere. It is called the homeland theory, which believes, and it's akin to what Professor Ape had said about the Eri, theory or history of the Igbo, sending from Chukwuka down. And then this other one, which many people, even Adela people, tend to believe about the Benue Confluence, theory, believing that people must have come down from that area of the Niger Benue Confluence and then began to disperse into various parts. Whatever be the case, there is one point people must understand, that the human element is a product of migration.
Okay.
To migrate, and as they migrated, they carried alongside with them their culture, their religion, and their past of life. But because we are dealing with Igbo's particular own is, in fact, I don't think there's any settled opinion as to say this is where the Igbo people are. That controversy is still there. But if you ask me as a historian, looking at what we have done over the years and what the Igbo have achieved, I wouldn't want to believe that the Igbo people would have migrated from anywhere else, apart from maybe the normal migrations that happen in Africa. Look at the Eastern Africa, the long the distance, battle migration. Look at the movement in Southern Africa that changed demography and all that. It is easy for people to move from one place to the other, carrying their country. Even in the present generation, people are still moving. And over time, people begin to study the history of some of those people who have moved over time. And so that controversy still lingers, whether the Igbo are of the external stock or whether they are from the homeland stock. And that is the controversy that is threading the Igbo origin at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, I have a few things like
Yes, Dr. Annie.
Professor Patan and Professor Ate have said, also Dr. Mbali said. My worry is just a single thing. Professor Afibo mentioned it. The origin of the Negro race. Are the Igbo white or black? Understand? If you look at it critically, the Jews are white, fair-skinned. Egyptians are also fair-skinned and all that. But the Igbo, we are the Negro race. So Professor Afibo mentioned that is the origin of the Negro race. Where can we place a limit that this Negro race, that's the limit of their habitation? He mentioned Khartoum, Timbuktu, Aziz. He called it the latitude of Arcella. Understand?
Correct. Yes.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
The latitude of Arcella. So that is the home of the Negro. So the Negro lived below that belt. And if you look at that belt, Egypt and the Hebrew land is off that belt. And of course, the Igbo here, we are dark-skinned. We are not fair-skinned like the other groups. So I believe so strongly that the Igbo originated within this environment. Then we are beginning to look at what is the point of differentiation between this group and the other group. One thing struck me about the Igbo, the striking uniformity in their culture. I visited Halomona. I also visited Ohaji. I visited Nkalago. I visited Mbazulika Mechi's village in Anambra, Opo. I went to those places. So something was very unique. As soon as I came, they know that I was coming. They presented kola nut, first of all, did a series of talk, that kola nut, and they presented it. It was broken. We shared before they asked me for it's at a Halomona. It happened so. At Ohaji Ebema, it happened so. At Nkalagu, the same thing. At Obo, the same thing. Even at this place in other states, Obingwa, the same thing. So this uniformity shows that we came from one central camp. From there, we began to migrate. So my belief is that the Igbo, we originated from here. Understand? We are not fair-skinned. We are dark-skinned people. Understand? So that's my point in my take on that. Prof.
Okay. Well, thank you, my colleagues. You see, I'm happy all these controversies are coming to the fore now. And part of the problem we have actually is that resolving these controversies will be a very tall order. Tall order in the sense that even from the theories that exist, by the time you start interrogating them one by one, you see a lot of loopholes. Let me just be specific. In the issue of the Eri that descended from the sky and came and saw everywhere was water, but the same Eri who claims to be the founder went to the Oka blacksmith to come and dry the land. Now, if the Oka have perfected the act of smithing and smelting before Eri came, what does it tell us? Will the issue of Eri be sustained again? You see, this is part of the controversy. The issue of Eri cannot be sustained if linked to the activities of the Oka blacksmith that dry the land for them to inhabit. Now, if somebody came, found a challenge, and he went to another person to solve that challenge, and the person who solved the challenge is no longer recognized as having been there. It's just like telling us that Mungapok found the river Niger, whereas people had been there.
Yes.
Using the Niger. So these are part of the challenges we have. So, and Dr. Ali raised a very important issue. Now, in all these Hermetic hypotheses, we came from East, we come from the Middle East region, Anatolia and the rest of them. That idea equally, there is a very big challenge. Yes, in terms of skin color, we are not the same. Yes, we may say geography, sun, and everything may have affected the color, but that's a different ballgame. Now, people who lay claim to the Middle East as they say these are because these were the real centers of Asian civilization. But Igbo land presently is challenging that theory based on archaeological findings. If you take a look of human civilization, you find out that iron, the knowledge of iron working, played a major role in human civilization. And why the Middle East is regarded as part of the center of civilization is that under the Iron Age, they were among the first recorded by people like Shara and Ashmore to have originated the idea of iron smelting, especially by the Hittites, 2000 BC. But here in Igbo land, archaeological discoveries equally found that iron smelting had been perfected in Igbo land as far back as 2000 BC. So now you see now that poses a new challenge. The intercretionist theory, the exotic origin. So if the Igbo as far back as 3000 BC have developed that technology of extracting ore from stones from hematites and process it to get their bloom, with which their blacksmiths forged their tools, then that goes a long way to tell you that our history of settlement here actually may predate. I use the word may. This is part of the thing I learned from my boss, Professor John. You don't say everything with equal finality. Yes. So the Igbo may have lived in this area longer or even earlier than the area they are pointing at as the area of their source of origin. So these are some of the interventions I want to make.
Okay, thank you very much, all professors, for debating this topic. I think we, as the young people and just guests who are interested in this topic, we do have a lot of research to do, but this will give us the foundational knowledge to start those researches. So now, as young people, as people who have studied and lived this Igbo life, what are some of the critical moments or turning points in Igbo history that every young person should know, in your opinion? Who wants to go first, or should I pick? Dr. Annie, do you want to start us off?
Okay, turning points. I would have loved the Professor Sopata to speak first, but then I don't know what I would say. But let me go this way. To my own opinion, turning points, apart from colonialism, like let me relate what happened in my own culture area. The era of the evangelicals is a turning point we should look at also, because that's when traditional Igbo culture started facing mutilation by our own people. Understand? The missionaries that came did not destroy our culture. They just brought in few things. They were not courageous enough to do so. But when they left, the indigenous Christians within our societies started destroying our culture. They are the people that pass through the rite of passage into adulthood to get means of production. For instance, in my own place, you must be an initiate of the masquerade cult. Understand? They were initiated before they confessed Christianity. So when they confessed Christianity, they returned to destroy the institution. Understand? Then they were initiates. They kept groups where people that committed atrocities were thrown into for punishment and all that. There were people that returned again to say missionaries will take over those places, and they desecrated the whole place. So it's a turning point to my own view, because in my place, our indigenous people destroyed our culture. Today, not far from my house is a family. The children were born in this village. They are in secondary school presently, but they cannot speak Igbo language. Understand? They are born in this village. They are living. They have not gone anywhere. They have not left. They have not lived. They have not left this village to anywhere. All school in this village, but they don't speak Igbo language. So all these things kicked off when aspects of us were destroyed by people among us that fancy our traditional institutions. So let me leave it at that, so that our professors will shed more light on it.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you for that. Dr. Mbalisi, you're on mute. You have something to add?
Unmute yourself, Dr.
Dr.
Mbalisi.
Mbalisi, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry about that. One thing I'm happy about is the fact that both Professor Pata and Professor Ape, we are both our teachers, and so I'm happy that we are sharing this honor of discussing the land with them. So
Yes.
I think it is better we speak first, so that where we are not able to dig out the facts, they as fathers will be able to shield our inadequacies.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, Dr. Uche, you have made a point, but I still want to believe that there is what to call the contact point of the fact that the Igbo culture began to derail. I want to believe that the book, one of the monumental books we have about the coming of the so-called white men, call them Europeans, is recorded by Chinua Achebe in his book Things Fall Apart. That particular book extracted the all the effects and all the dangers that colonial rule brought upon the African society. Trying to just pin it down to one particular religion or maybe Christian sect, I think you're just trying to be you're trying to romanticize, trying to paint the dangerous effect that colonialism brought on the African society, with some clear paint to make it beautiful. I want to stay categorically. Yes, many people were colonized, but the fact that colonialism was the major factor through two institutions, Christianity and Western education. I would want to mention one book that I read, Kinwizu, The West and the Rest of Us. He said the West brought what they call book reading, just to convince people to learn how to read and write, and not to teach them the real education. By reading and writing, they just learn how to pronounce and use the English alphabet, and then to be able to speak English, to convince people on how to drop their own culture and assume that they are inferior to the Western world. By that way, colonial rule had, planted an education that was different from the traditional education. Again, Christianity, which also Chino Achebe also mentioned, that sometimes, I don't want to say what, but sometimes it sounds very controversial. That if one religion says I am the way, the truth, and the life, that religion is either is arrogant or needs to have its ideologies re-examined. Now, what Chino Achebe is saying, that you can't just come out and say all other religions are just rubbish except the one that the Western world introduced. All right, I've read certain works by Edmond de Logo on how the Europeans were so afraid of the Igbo traditional religion and education that they had to even place a ban on oracular worship and many other things. All these things we have done just to make sure that that thing, which is the identity of the Igbo, was kept aside for them to be able to do what? Drop their ways and assume that whatever the Europeans have brought to Africa was the perfect thing to follow. All right? Uh, Obukalu, the embattled gods. You see, these people have written, these people who were closer and who stayed and saw the inefficiencies of the colonial peoples and how they tried to subdue the African culture and traditional religion. Brandishing them as things that are barbaric and almost satanic. People now began to, force people to leave their traditional identity and become Christians. One aspect I've always quarreled with anywhere I go to is the fact that Mary Celeste, whom most of us contemporary young African radical historians see as a racist, who believe that changing my name from Chinedu to Andrew or to Matthew is what will guarantee me safety as a Christian. So many things that they did, both the lies they told that the Igbo slaughtered twins and the rest of them, some of the practices that had, they are still in some other parts of Nigerian society are not the Igbo. The Igbo people who valued life, who valued procreation, who were deep neck in polygamy and having more children, and you just say they were slaughtering their twins and killing them because they were, I don't know how to describe that. I've always quoted that thing is a no-go area. Now, these are the areas where I know that these Europeans have tried and they did everything possible to subdue whatever that is African, making the African to see himself as an inferior being to the European. First was the skin. Of course, if you read some other poems like The Telephone Conversation, all right, by J.P. Clark, you will see also how that played out between an African man and a European in terms of search for house. How they have emphasized the black man's skin as something that makes him an inferior person. See the entire Africa to see themselves as an inferior race. It is that point of contact which I hinge on colonial rule and the two agents, Christianity and Western education. Rather than teach us the other ways of technology and the rest of them, they got to teach us only book reading, as Chinwezu pointed out. I read one article from one of my teachers again, Professor Obiani. He titled it Colonialism. He said, brainwashed Africans, the legacy of colonial rule. Of course, what Africans have been brainwashed, and so whatever we see is that our people, with the emergence of Pentecostalism, added salt to injury by adopting so many things that are inexplicable and begin to impose them on our African people, as though those things are the ways of life. Beginning to talk about our ancestral life, our own life, as something that is fetish, and our ancestors are people who are living in a dirty life. I told you last time that some of the things I see, which is happening today, is because of the influence of colonial rule and the rest of them, and imposed religions, the imported religions, and their effect on African society. What we see today is that whatever that is African is almost seen as fetish and evil plot. Take for instance, if I go to Israel as a Christian to go and pray on the Black Stone and some other places, when I return here, I'll be given the title JP. If I go to maybe one of those Muslim areas, I'll go for Hajj. If I return from Hajj, I'll be called an Alhaji. But if I do draw from my own town here and go to my village to go and pour libation to the ancestors and do the normal thing, when I return, I'll be branded a fetish person and I do worshiper. You ask me, is that the real thing? Is that the real method that should be used to explain somebody who is also serving nature and serving his own God in his own way? I think I will stop here. Why don't I take the time that we used to discuss this particular matter? It's an area I love to discuss so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Opalisi. Dr. Opata, would you like to shed some light?
Okay, thank you. You see, yes, for me, our path of departure took very long. Our contact with the Arab through the transatlantic slave trade was a major turning point, because the issue of selling of slaves, selling of our own people, we moved them through the north to the Arab world. Then came the transatlantic slave trade. It might interest you to know that if you read the works on the Atlantic slave trade, the works of Philip Cotton, Inikori, Ibafe, name them, Caroline Brown, Paul Lovejoy, and the rest of them, you find out, David Eltis, you find out that the Igbo in the Bight of Biafra contributed enormously to the population of people sold. Now, where people have depopulated themselves, those populations that had gone out of their own environment to develop another area, what is their mindset about the people that sold them out? Because sometimes people talk of the white are racist. I don't really blame them, sort of, because we created the problem. You sold your own people. Some people talk of reparation. Who is to pay the reparation? They pay you, they gave you articles. Yes, they were not commensurate compared to the human being that you gave to them, but you sold and you exchanged for something. And then it was during all this cumulative trade of selling our people and the trade in other products that they actually found out our mindsets, and they now cashed in to colonize. Now, when they cashed in to colonize, they came using Western education as in biology. They came with Christianity. And sometimes, when we make some statements, people say that historians are too radical. It's not so. We are being objective. Because, take the case of Christianity. The Christians came, and one of the things they said that Igbo were so barbaric, they were killing people, human sacrifice. Yes, I'm a Christian. My name is even Christian. But let's face the reality. The issue is, if the Igbo killed an Igbo man during a sacrifice, what does he have in mind? His mindset is that through that killing, he's going to attain his target, which is a salvation from his own standpoint. Now, Christianity as it is, what was the foundation of Christianity, if not human sacrifice? Christ was human and was sacrificed. Yes, spiritually speaking, the sacrifices are not the same from the way the Christians interpret it. But basically, what gave foundation to Christianity was human sacrifice. That's one point. Then, come to think of the type of knowledge that the colonial masters imparted on us. It's not peculiar to Igbo, but why some of us are pained as it relates to the Igbo is that the type of indigenous knowledge we had and that which we are losing is unquantifiable. Today, when people talk of biological warfare, they say this, chemical warfare. These are nothing new to the Igbo. We had biological warfare in international societies. We had chemical warfare in international societies. Our own engineers are not, and technicians are not even research. They are not even concerned about researching on such matters. Rather, they quote one foreigner that is an authority in this. But what your ancestors did. Now, look at even transportation. People are going into, you take a flight from here to Ibadan. But a native doctor in our area can just through invocation and some staff of office and fire move from here to Ibadan without even entering anything. Where have those knowledges gone? We call it Ikwikiri in Igbo land. That is what we call Ikwikiri. So we lost from various points. We lost everything when we started denigrating our traditional knowledge systems. One of the leading authorities, like if you read J.D. Basden, he says that the Igbo are quick to abandon what they have. we were so quick to abandon what we have. And worst of it all, we denigrate what we know nothing about and eulogize what we know nothing about. So that's a major problem. So until we go back to study all those things that we are denigrating, we cannot forge ahead. Because what we see here is that we want to develop without a transition. We cannot talk of development without undergoing a transition. It's like a child. After crawling, you won't stand up, nothing, you won't crawl, then you start running. Is that possible? That child must be an abnormal child. And that's exactly what is happening now. We are seeing an abnormal situation. Please let me stop here.
Thank you. Dr. Ape, you have something to add to this? You're on mute, sir. You're on mute.
Prof, unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself. Still on mute. You are still on mute.
Perfect.
Yes, muted.
Okay.
Yeah, said I presume we are talking about the critical moments or turning points in Igbo history.
Correct.
And yes, my colleagues have started it, and what I've been saying has been very okay, in line with what I think, but still something remains. Because when we talk about this period in Igbo history, one should be interested in colonialism, which they have been expatiating all along. But expatiating colonialism, one will actually understand the Igbo egalitarianism and denunciation of indolence. The Igbo denounces indolence. We are talking about hard work. And even in the Achebe's things fall apart, Okonkwo, even though was begotten by Unoka, the indolent father, denounced indolence and everything that went with it. The Igbo believes that Onye feze eze roye. And when you serve a master, masterhood will be bestowed upon you. The greatest turning point in Igbo history has been the Nigerian. Beings by the rest of the country, because the Civil War was the Nigeria and the rest of us, or the Igbo and the rest of us. Remember the abandoned property? And when the rest of the Nigerian groups bordering the Igbo at the end of the war became apprehensive of these people that could hold the entire country for 30 months. That, in fact, we should do everything possible to get them down. Remember the 20 pounds given to all of those who had accounts in banks and all this? Remember how the indigenization decree began 1970s and all this. At a time, the Igbo had nothing. Then, getting down to Igbo land 10 years later, you'll find that these people looks like the Toyota, when Volkswagen of Nigeria was on, they produced the Volkswagen Beetle. The advertisement on television, then black and white, and how you carry your leg, stamp on it, it will move on. The Beetle did not die until the arrival of Toyota Corolla. That was it. But what I was trying to state here is that the Igbo really very hardworking people. According to late Rose, he said these are people that are not interested in their history, but interested in their future. But not being interested in their future, yes, that's a European scholar's observation of the Igbo. But you look at the various traditions in Igbo society. We must not write our history to be operational. These traditions and histories we preserve are preserved in our festivals, in our names, the names we bear, in the names of the towns, and several other things around us. That's why we preserve them. It must not be written. But
Well, I think Dr. Ape is still having some internet challenges.
Challenges.
Yes.
we'll
Well,
find out that whether we are interested in our history or not.
Sorry.
so we'll meet him for now. So in at the moment.
Maybe the history, yeah? Hello?
Hi, Dr. Ape.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello, yes.
My,
Okay.
I should continue. Okay.
Yeah,
Then, if
yeah. Continue, please. Thank you.
yes, what I'm trying to state here is that even after the Civil War, we all find we are Nigerians. That there is no Nigerian ethnic group better than the Igbo in fostering unity in Nigeria. Because the Igbo is the only group of people that goes to a place and develops them. Although we have our philosophy of Akurolo, whatever money you make the place, you bring some home. But we still have to contend with the Konawachi. Invest and make good where we live in as much as the Akuru or philosophy tribes. That, yes, we have to show wherever we are. We move into Kano, we move into Meduguri, we move into several places in Nigeria. You build houses, you establish businesses, but you can count one or two on your fingers. How many houses owned by a Hausa person or a Yoruba person in Igbo land? But go to Lagos and we know it is now common knowledge how the Igbo are recovering the Atlantic Ocean for their landlord. So we are the ones trying to forging this unity of Nigeria. You are a serious job in doing that. And by doing that, you find out that several of the peoples, when you now recover the Atlantic and all this, they will now come for you to pay your rent and put some other measures about that. But that is still okay for us. Want a very nice environment, a halcyon environment for businesses to thrive. And I think this is the basic need of the people. We are not in government. We are not, would I say we are not aspiring to, but the interest primarily is good environment for business to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ape. Then I think that leads us to the next part because a lot of people watching, they're still figuring out what it means to be Igbo, especially in this very modern world. And I know I just said Igbo with a British accent. I mean Igbo. Yes. So in terms so in terms of
Now you hit
They are
him.
trying now.
thank you, we're getting there. So in terms of traditional institutions, I know some people like just keeping it in the states. From those from Mbano, Mbise, they have things called Iwakwa. Then the different titles you can have. There's Ozo,
Yeah.
there's Nze, there's Mazi. How do those traditional institutions help us to understand our heritage? We'll go with you, Dr. Annie.
Okay. Yes, I think Iwakwa, Iwaji, all that. It is part of the general timelines in Igbo history, like the way it is viewed in my place. We don't actually do Iwakwa and Iwaji here, but it is basically the rite of passage into adulthood. Then we have
And
the
just for the
retirement period
audience, doctor,
when a
just
man
could you give
retires.
tell us where you are from, just so we know which context you're talking about.
Okay, I'm from Enugu State. I'm from Enugu State. I'm from Ngo precisely. So in Ngo here, we don't Iwa Akwa and Iwaji is not prominent. What is prominent here is Ibama to be an initiate into the masquerade course, and it is a school. You enter as an adolescent. It takes 3 stages. They will train you. You become strong. The essence is that you must grow into taking responsibility for your own actions. You must grow into becoming strong. You must grow into being accountable, over the things they entrust under your care. So when you have satisfied all that, you now be a proper initiate into the cult. Then what happens is that they will give you means of production. You now earn the right of having means of production. And in my own area here, it is land. When you are given a land, then you are also given yam seedlings to start up your own business. Your father have settled you. Then you are now qualified to say, I have a girl I will marry. Then you have a right to say, okay, I want to build a house in the land they have given you already. In this place, land is not marketable, until recently. Until when the watchman came around here, land wasn't marketable. So in the context, it is Ibama, rite of passage. So when you have satisfied that, are qualified to have access to means of production, and it is a noble thing in this environment. When you have not done that, you are not viewed as basically in the traditional political society, where you have the extended family and the kindred. You cannot hold positions there. If you are not an initiate, you cannot hold positions. Then you cannot handle responsibilities because you have not proven yourself as worthy to handle responsibilities because you have not gone through that process. Okay, so you cannot hold positions, you cannot handle responsibilities. Then you cannot have access to means of production. Then your kindred cannot accompany you to have a wife for yourself. These are the implications of not being an initiate. So every young man aspires to grow into that so that they can take up responsibilities, of contributing to the economy of the environment, and also, participating in peace building mechanisms within the society. Because when in times of war, there are the people that will be called upon to represent the village in terms of a crisis and their conflicts. So these are the things. So it's a noble thing in my own place. Let me stop at that.
Dr. Mbalisi, is there something you can add to this for Imo States?
Yeah, I'll quickly say that yeah, my place is actually Mbano. I'm from Mbano. And when you mentioned Iwakwa, it's something that the people from that area are known for. Like Dr. Amin pointed out, it's simply rite of passage from adolescence to adulthood. In Igbo society, every society has their own way. They have their own way of, building the maturity of a child from childhood to adolescence to adulthood, and then to whatever age till you die. So this is one thing that confirms that such an adult has reached the age of he or she taking responsibility for whatever he or she wants to do. It is not just for men, it is both for men and women in my area. But basically, because of the way it is, men, I've actually witnessed it, I've been there, I've seen it happen, I know how it operates. If you don't do Iwakwa in my area, Numbano area, especially the Hime area, Histo Boma, the rest of them, you are not seen as yet a mature man. You cannot marry, you can't attend a meeting, you can't pay tax in the village, you can't contribute to whatever you're doing. In fact, you are ostracized from your age grade if you don't perform the Iwakwa with your age grade. It is something as serious as that. And that is where indeed what we call the heritage of the people of that area starts from. For you to first of all be recognized that you can now pay tax, you can now vie for positions in our community, you can become an adult to pay tax, to join the town union and some other things, you must have gone through this particular work. It is a serious business, it's not a child's play. So if you don't do it, they step you aside. You will see your mates do things you can't participate. When somebody dies, nobody recognizes you at the burial spot. Wherever you visit, you can't even attend your village meetings. Then who are you? You are what we call in Igbo language an efulefu. Somebody who has no responsibility in his time. Yes, who is not recognized. So I think it is one important aspect that for the sake of what you are doing, that the people of the area, if they are in the group listening, is something they must understand. If you must become somebody who is recognized, first you must have an age grade. People who are born within your age limit. Wherever you are, whether you are in UK, you are in US, you are in Tanzania, anywhere you are in any part of the world, it is not something you can do by proxy. You must come back to participate, go through the rituals that happens about 3 to 4 days, and then do the normally waka, you tie the long wrapper, and your mate will escort you to the market where you are now going to denounce adolescenthood. And then you were brought into your age grade where you now sit on the place where people who are responsible in society would sit. So I think it is important that we know this is a mark of respect, is a mark of respect, is a mark of adulthood. It is the same way it is in several crimes. If you are in the school system, they'll tell you if you don't write jam, you can't enter university. If you don't write this one, you can't. So when you pass through these stages, even when somebody dies, there's a right to passage to from the living to the life of the dead, which must be accorded to you. So at any point in time, that is part of the thing that establishes the Igbo village democracy and what comes with it. So for my area, Mbano people and the rest of them, that is one of the things that showcases the traditional and cultural heritage of the people. And it's only when you do this in that title taking can then come to you. Without participating in these things, title taking, no matter how rich you are, nobody can for giving you title. You can't even be upper cola nut in the public. It is as good as serious as that. That is the real cultural heritage of the people of my area. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Opata, do you have anything to add to this section?
Definitely, I do, because this is an area that I'm highly interested in when it comes to heritage. First, if we want to discuss Igbo heritage, we have to make a distinction. What type of heritage are we talking of? Are we interested in the tangible or the intangible? Or are we interested in both? If we're interested in both, how do we establish the nexus between the tangible and the intangible? And this is where the problem of the Igbo are. Intangible heritage is what goes a long way to give credit to the tangible. But the intangible heritage in most Igbo societies have become a subject of malevolent recruitization, to the extent that people who know next to nothing stand up to condemn. And this is where you see some Igbo becoming more Catholic than the Pope. To put it another way, you cannot be discussing your heritage, whereas those things that made you tick, you don't know anything about them. There are those of us who are even professors of history. If you tell them to trace their lineage to the 4th generation, you'll be embarrassed. They can't do that.
Wow.
You'll be embarrassed. They cannot. They can only tell you their father, their grandfather, great grandfather, but trace it, link it to their village, link it to their community. They can't. Then, in linking all this into their communities, but if they have paid attention to their fathers when they are offering morning prayers, you see that by the time they bring a lump of coconut and the offer and they start their prayer, you see that they read the whole family tree down to the father of the village. You see, is a link. But when that man is doing that prayer, you are not interested in the chain. You only see that to condemn him. What is this old man doing? Calling all these idols and all manner of things. This is part of the problem we are having. Then, in terms of building the society, it's unfortunate. In some Igbo communities today, attention is being paid to ill-gotten wealth. You see some people who are traditional rulers during their so-called ofala. Non-rogues in communities are crowned and coronated, giving honors. That was not done in traditional Igbo society. Before you are given a title in traditional Igbo societies, they check your record. What has been your contribution to the development and progress of society? How did you make your wealth? But today, even Yahoo boys, 419ers, once they can pay into the account of some traditional rulers, are given titles. And this goes a long way in denigrating that heritage of hard work, sincerity of purpose that the Igbo are known for. And then you see people who want to take us all title is also in the real sense of it. They say, I'm a Catholic. I will not go through the rituals of a day. If you are not ready to go through the rituals, stay clear. Because you are denigrating that particular institution. It's a denigration. And also is supposed to be truthful. There is a process and a quick manner. You have to be initiated. Your tongue has to be sanctified. Your tongue must be sanctified so that whatever comes out of you must be true. Not speaking from both sides of the mouth. But now they hide under Christianity. I will not do this. And the same person, when matters come and his attention is needed, he starts telling lies, rewriting history. So our attention should be more on, first, let's study those past. What are the traditions we have? What were the essence of those traditions? What do they represent in our worldview? Why and how did our ancestors, why did our ancestors even initiate such institutions? Look at the issue of funerals. If I use my own community, I'm from Leja. Leja is an Onsuka. There are some practices, rituals we do for dead people. But people who claim to be Christians say, no, I don't want to do that for anybody. I will not part of it. But they didn't bother to ask questions. For instance, if the eldest man of a community, of any village dies, there is a ritual that is done, known as Igbo. This is done by women, married women, daughters of that village. That night, the body of the village head must be placed on a wooden bamboo bed. Fire is lit to warm his body overnight. And the women will be moving from one compound to the other. And to show you the antiquity, even now, they make mock nakedness. So Why is that? Questions and influence shows that it is linked to the tradition of iron smelting. That is linked to the tradition of iron smelting. Then for those who are not elders, who are not village heads, there is what they call Ubengala. That is not for every farmer. In that case, that is a way of sustaining the culture of agriculture and food self-sufficiency, because as the men move from compound to compound, they come to your compound. If you don't have any yam to offer them, you are written off. So in that case, people who get prepared, their barns are stacked, so that there is nothing like it was an emergency, I'm not prepared. Then for the women, once they are moving and they feel that the yams are many, they keep it, they look at a woman and say, okay, cook this and bring down to the ancestral village square. If you say, no, please, give to another woman, I don't have the condiments, you are written off. So that's a way of encouraging both the male and the men and the women to be ready to sustain themselves economically at any point in time. Then look at the village square that we're talking of. Yes, the village square used to be our parliament. But today, those who claim to be Christians go and sweep the village square. No, it is against my faith. The parish priest say we should not sweep the village square. It is a sacrilege. There are idols there. But you go to markets where there are very many idols. You buy from there and eat. What goes into a man doesn't define him. But what comes out? You will eat. What is bought from where idols are. But you will not sweep a village square. That is even the symbol of that village. They are the symbol of that society. So if foreigners want to meet you, they don't go to an individual's house. You people assemble at the village square. That's the tradition. But those things that our ancestors honored, we are no longer honoring it. So we really have a long way to go. And for me, is let's come back and start studying and questioning the meaning, essence of those things that we are condemning. So
Thank you very much, Dr. Pata. I think you touched on very important areas within our heritage. But one thing I did notice is that you started speaking about the gender roles, and in our current times, women actually do feel, well, modern times, is being presumed and assumed that women do not have a part to play in Igbo culture and heritage. In fact, a lot
no.
say that a lot do not like our tradition or misunderstand it. So, could you give us a bit of an overview of women's roles, the importance of women in Igbo tradition and culture?
Well, my sister, you see, sometimes I laugh. All these stereotypes that people bandy, that women were not given this. Well, I don't know where they copy that. That is not a true replication of what happens in Igbo society.
Yes.
Historically speaking.
Yeah.
Well, I have to be specific. And I want to say something that is verifiable. I repeat, I'm from Leja. In my own village, in my own community, we are made of 33 villages. In all the villages, for somebody to assume the position of a village head, the staff of office must be transferred to him by women, not men. That's political empowerment. Women are the people who transfer the symbol of authority to the village head. At the death of the village head, after the burial, the women will move, do the divination. The woman who the gods chose to carry that symbol will carry it to the house of the next village head, and the next village head will not even cite it till after 28 days. It is the son and relations that will hide it. On the day he is to assume that office, the same woman that carried it will come to his house early, move that staff of office to the shrine, to the grave of the ancestor of that village, the ancestral shrine, the grave of the progenitor of that village. That's why you assume the office. That in that case, you now see that that woman, after some rituals, they will now hand over that staff of office to the village head. And that leads to a question. If women are the people who hand over symbol of authority to men, assuming the woman refused to hand over, not because of that village, is there not total anarchy? That would be anarchy. That would be totality. Another stereotype, which the so-called feminist scholars, because the problem is that they always view all these things from the Western lens. They talk of how many women are in the parliament, how many women are there, how many women are there. Let me ask you a question. Traditionally in Igbo society, is land male or female? What is the gender of land? You heard of the earth goddess?
Yes.
Good. In terms of ownership of land, is it women that own the land or men? But why is it that the land is gendered to be female? Of many deities in Igbo land, how many of them are female and how many are male?
Are male, yes.
How many? Even the Hofia war dance. What is the history of the Hofia war dance? That the male pride themselves in. So, even in the so-called, because, well, I don't buy the idea of using the term masquerade because it doesn't actually represent what the masked beings or the incarnate beings are in our own setting. Because these are embodied spirit, they're not camouflage. Masquerade means camouflage. So for me, I don't subscribe to the use of the term masquerade. So in the incarnate being or masked being institution, women play a very big role too. Women play some big role. There are some apothobances of those incarnate beings that are processed by women. There are apothobances that are processed by women. But the category of women that do that in most cases are post-menopausal women and virgins. Whatever they are still women. So there are a lot of things. So traditionally, women had very big and enormous powers in Igbo society. What of the Umuada institution? The fear of the Umuada in Igbo land is the beginning of wisdom.
Yes.
Because if they pass on you, you cannot sustain their pressure. You dare not. You can confront the male and after the village meeting, but by the time the Umuada start assembling from various villages and where they are married, and they tell you that they're coming specifically for you, my God, you better go and hide, or you better go and do the needful to calm them. So please, this idea of women are being marginalized, all these things, that is not for traditional Igbo society. Let me stop here and get information
Thank you,
from my
Dr. Pata. Dr. Ape, you want to add something? Oh.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself.
Something.
Yes.
I'm unmuted.
Perfect.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what I want to say is that you see, this discussion on Igbo history, Igbo society, something is being left behind. And that thing exactly is, let us for once try to categorize or group the various Igbo societies, because we know that for one to say the Igbo does this, the Igbo does that, that's a misnomer. You'll find one thing in one operational in a society in Igbo community. If you go to another, it becomes an anathema. You'll find an activity here which is abhorred in the neighboring. So if we're able to group maybe Southern Igbo groups, we all know Northern Igbo group, Western Igbo, and Eastern, the Cross River Igbo groups and all this. I think this will exactly help us. But for us to try to lump everything, you'll find that when you lump them, you'll find loopholes everywhere. Because you might say the Igbo does this, but actually if you check from other Igbo culture, they will find that thing as absurd. So also, if you are now talking about, yes, village traditional Igbo institutions, the village square and all this, which as Professor Bada said, was formerly our parliament. And that is right. Villagers there go to take important decisions about the community, about their community. There you find logs of wood and serve as seats for male adults who retire there when sometimes the home becomes so hot, right? They will move to the square to discuss matters with fellow men and leaving the family. From there, they will, maybe when food is ready, a child will come in there to tell Papa, Mommy said that your food is ready or something like that. But you'll find out that these village groups, squares are still there and some are dying. Just as Opata said that because of negligence, that some group of people continue to say, oh, we can't even sweep there because there is an altar for God there and something like that. But these things have been there. There's no village or community or society in Igbo land that made some of those deities to harm their people. It was done in days of yore, when might was right. And these things have continued to be there. And if you don't disturb them, they don't disturb you. Allow them. The entire village or community may not be interested in worshiping, but the few that are, they should go there. The few that are not, they should go and obtain salvation from wherever they think is possible. Right. Then, when we now talk about this age grade system, yes, age grade in almost every Igbo community, but it is not as good as it is among the Cross River Igbo groups of Ohofia, Rochukwu, Abreba, Bende, and Abam groups and all this. There, the age group system is very much operational. And in fact, the society per se is governed by the most senior age groups. But this is not the same among societies of the Northern Igbo groups, where you have the eldest person as the head of the village head and all this. The oldest male in that society, because they operate on gerontocracy. It is age that counts. And when one gets old and becomes the oldest among his village group, it becomes the eldest. And the traditional way of bestowing on him that title or position as the eldest, which is called the Onye. And we all know that if you talk about the word Onye, somebody from maybe other Igbo groups might say, what does that mean? A blind person? Yes. The Onye is a blind person. Blind in terms of the fact that he is now the oldest. He is not the father of John or Pati or Uche. He is now the father of all. And because he's the father of all, he is blind in taking decisions about the village. just as the Western judicial system represents justice with the symbol of justicia, a woman blindfolded, the same way it is for this village group, for these village groups. And you'll find out that, yes, as a village group, they stay together. The only she is seen as the blind that sees both the light and darkness. He sees both the day and night. He sees both the spirit and the living. He is the gateway between the living and the dead. And because he's the gateway between the living and the dead, he sees both the dead and the living. And anything he does, or when he behaves otherwise, is believed that the dead, which is ministering for in the land of the living, will take him away. So you'll find out that these tribes among these northern Igbo, if you get down to maybe central Igbo groups where you have the other societies and all this, there you have the Nze as members of the council of elders and something like that. Then among the Nze too, you will still take titles that will now bestow the other, make you an other title holder. And being an other title holder, you are believed to have been given the powers to dispense justice. You have been made or considered to be a moral leader, custodian of truth, and dispensers of justice within your community. And that is why when Christians talk about, taking the other title, one becomes askance, because yes, are you saying all these things I said, you will not abide by it, being an author? But we all know that primarily as a Christian, you have to dispense this. But because it is bereft of the average Christian, traditionally we have this in the society where we get men endowed to do this, take an oath to be a conveyor of justice, be an unbiased adjudicators in disputes, and play other spiritual roles, significant roles in the spiritual and religious life of the community. That if we now continue with this, we always say that the rest of Igbo land needed to be categorized for better understanding of this discourse on Igbo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you,
Ampe.
Prof.
Thank you,
Ivana,
Prof.
do you want to add something to that before we move on to the next section?
Yes, what I want to add is something, the family, stereotypes, family, in Igbo land, the family, constitution of a family is not necessarily what the Europeans call the nuclear family. Presently, we have the nuclear family. So this nuclear family thing has caused a lot of, trust issues among families in Igbo land, where people become so selfish, so self-centered, and this one is my own, is for these people that came from me and all that. So I don't think in Igbo land, family is the extended family where talents moves around, endowments also moves around. People get something, it circulates within the family, and family grows. So family grows out of selflessness, not selfishness. So the nuclear family connotation in Igbo land has made, brought selfishness among and hindered development of people that are skilled within that same family circle. So that's for family. I will also want our professors to also throw light on that. Then the gender role of women in my own place here, women are so powerful. Their roles are different, very powerful. In my own family, particularly in my own family, we have 3 boys and 2 girls. Then there's one girl, our eldest sister. When our father was alive, we took a decision, 3 of us, the men, and decide on what to do with our father. It is sealed. That woman will, from her husband's house, put a phone call across and knowledge. everything we have done. As soon as he calls our father nullifies everything we have done. So different councils in Igbo land. So I don't believe that their rule they are relegated. They are not. They have never been relegated at all. Their rule are very strong, and also they have independence in terms of economy. They have their own area where they are not accountable to anybody, but they do it as a mark of fidelity to their husbands. They run business, they call and all that. So they have their own rules. So I do not think that they are relegated in Igbo land. So let me leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to the next section. I think this is where young people are very interested in, and that is how can Igbo young people, especially those in the diaspora, stay connected to their heritage? Are there any tools you can give us or any insight into how we can do this? Dr. Dr. Mbalisi, you can go first.
Okay, before I delve into that, I just wanted to make a comment about the issue of women. Just one sentence. If you just look back and from the time women have always been strong in taking care of families, if you ask yourself which group of women, which group broke the indirect system in Igbo land, for instance, I think the women, the about women rights or about women revolt that ended the indirect system. That revolt was something that brought some heavy changes and all that. I don't want to go into it because in my own place, men have land, women own land. That is just the truth. They've mentioned Umada. Umada is a no-go area. They are a government on their own. They can control both men and women. That is so. The issue of women not giving adequate attention. I think it is come from people who are not properly informed of the role of women in Igbo society. Just like this man said in his book, Chinwezu, The Anatomy of Female Power. He says men are the head, of the house, but women are the neck that carries the head. If your leg they blow spend neck, you are finished. Your head is just to be static. Now, to what the younger generation would do, I think one thing I would say is that the younger generation have been so confused because of technology and some uh, issues that have to do with modernization. Most importantly, what we call globalization, cross-cultural borrowings from one particular place to another. Somebody described the township as Obodatoro, where the sheep stays. The sheep and the goat are two animals, but they have differences. The goat is embedded, he has a lot of wisdom, but the sheep has most times looks like a moron and can be very stupid. You see, sometimes the township can transform a normal human being into someone who is now who lacks identity, who lacks character, who lacks culture, who lacks focus. Our present generation of youth have followed technology, social media, to an extent that rather than see the things that would teach them their histories, they look more on the things that are created just for fun, what they call cruise, especially those who call the Gen Z generation. They have abandoned their roots. Many have abandoned their parents. Many have abandoned their traditional education. Many have abandoned their culture. And whatever that makes them the Igbo person, they've abandoned them because they live in towns like Abuja, Lagos, okay, UK, US. Many of them return here looking like confused people without identity. Many of them have been placed into some kind of fearful environment by some Pentecostal pastorpreneurs. People who tell them, don't go to your village. If you go there, your uncle will kill you, your auntie will kill you. Wait for you to finish your life. They have made our people to look afraid of what is happening. I know in recent times we've talked about the issue of insecurity, but the most important thing is that one, some Pentecostal persons have played into the hands of some parents, and then they have also transferred that fear factor to their siblings, who now fear going to their villages. And they have told them exactly again that whatever they see as masquerading, other cultural activities, Some even see what they call Ibankwa in some places as fetish. Now, when you see almost everything that is your identity as fetish, then that means there's a fundamental error in your life, in your identity as a person. The same masquerade that people branded fetish here and whatever they want to call it, the same masquerade that people fear to watch in Igbo land. People travel from here, paying dollars to go and watch masquerade display in Brazil. I don't know. I don't know if you're getting what I'm saying.
Yep.
Now,
Yes.
He was making a really good point, a very interesting point there. Um, so I hope he comes back.
oh Jesus.
Yes, Professor, you're back. We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Yeah, so they only believe that what matters to them is money. And once there is money, any other thing does not count. So their eyes are how to move from money to the other. Some parents, like we said before, are not even helping matters. All they want to see is that, oh, my son has a car, my son is rich, my son is that. My son, who does not even know anything about his culture and tradition. So parents project them to high heavens without any foundation. And that's why some of them will remain confused when they want to marry. They say they want to marry and have their traditional marriage in Lagos, with this one in Lagos. And even when they give birth to their children, they want to train them in Lagos. That's why you see people who are having what they call confused identity. Now you come to Boland to school, for instance, say, my mom told me I'm from Imo State. My father told me I'm from Anambra State. They ask him, okay, I get it back again. What do you mean? So your language, which is the first identity of an individual, that makes you an Igbo man because not by your material dressing. I can put up, the dressing of an Hausa man, for instance, and I walk into an environment. Anybody can assume that I'm an Alhaji, but you will wait until I speak a word. It is my language that gives me away.
Okay. We'll give the
As a
some
man
fallacy some time to come
to be
back.
identified within his people. Are you with me?
Yes, sir. Go on ahead.
Sorry, some calls are trying to interrupt my message. So I think what we need to do is, as this platform stands, we need to begin to educate them, to tell them that really you need to identify with your people. There is no fear in your own land. Those your uncles and aunties are not going to kill you, no matter how bad society is. You still need to be identified with your root. Your root is your root. Any man who misses his root will become an affiliate. He will keep hanging in the air and may not achieve much. And so I think the use of our time, we need to, through education, through programs like this, we need to educate them, we need to indoctrinate them, we need to explain to them these heritages, the meaning of respect for elders, the meaning of wealth as against money. What is leadership in Igbo land? What are those indigenous knowledge of the Igbo in terms of politics, economics, gender issues, and all whatnot? And that is a way we can begin to tell them. Whether we do it physically, technology has taken the place now. I think we can do some recordings, we can do some, wider reach outreach to tell them this, consistently educating them on these, issues that do with the traditional life of the Igbo man. I think that is going to help them to begin to come back to their heritage and to their identity, rather than remain floating in foreign lands and in foreign identities. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that
Okay.
because right now,
Uh,
yes, Dr. Annie, go on ahead.
okay. Before Professor Pe, because I know you say something very key in this, let me just bring this angle before you come up. I want to take it from here. The family has a role to play. The family has a role to play. Teach your children Igbo language. I have two sons. They were Christians with their local names. They don't have any English name. They have local names. So if they call, then teach them Igbo language. Name them Igbo names. Understand? Tell them about our heritage. Tell them about our food. Do you understand? So when they are growing up, they are picking it up. I teach students in my school here that grew up in Lagos. They come over. His name is her name is Chidimma. Say, Chidimma Kedu, I am fine. They are Igbo, but they cannot speak Igbo. And the worrisome thing is that they speak Yoruba language very, 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 very well. fluent Yoruba language, one fluent Hausa language, but he cannot speak his own language. So love what you are doing, love yourself, love the Igbo language, speak it to your children, teach them all that, and then they should be going home. I like what Dr. Mbalisi said. Pentecostal pastors who always project that this area is fetish, but we are here. We are here. We are alive. We are surviving. We are living in Igbo land. All of us that are speaking in Japan, we're living in Igbo land. And we're engaging with our culture and all that. So what has happened to us? Nothing happened to us. My children are living here too. Understand? So it is good we begin from that, creating this awareness, because in the passage of time, give it some few years down the line, our language will go into extinction, because like I said earlier, there is a family living close to my house here. They are living here, but they don't speak Igbo language. They were born here. They are in secondary school now, the children. They grew up here. They've not lived anywhere else apart from this village, but they don't speak Igbo language. So all these things are things that are, and when you don't do like that, you have to dissociate yourself with. When I was in school, they say, I didn't make you Igbo. I didn't make you Igbo. So all this mindset should be debunked from our youth, and they begin to love. Our people are industrious, they are good. So that's where I want to just pinch it, Professor Ape.
So you're on mute. Oh, perfect.
Thank you. I think you can hear me. Yes. We are all talking about the youths and the future of our children. Indeed. And here I stand to say that the beginning of our problem is our families, our parents, who pride in speaking Igbo to their children than Igbo language, who see be spoken at home, and sometimes in some schools it is fashionable to say, how are you? Fine. And that is what we want our children to talk and all this. But that's the beginning. But that's not the language. The English teacher at school should teach English. Get the children to speak English. Coming here back home, the parents, if they are both Igbo, should ensure Igbo is spoken. If they are half Igbo, half foreign, they should see how they coordinate it, because it is this language that gives identity, primary identity of an individual.
Yes.
Every other thing can be managed, can be, in fact, what will I say? Every other thing you can pretend you are, but for the language, it's not just about speaking Igbo. If you speak Igbo as one Igbo, somebody you are talking to an Igbo person knows you are not learning. You are speaking it as a first language person. Now, we will talk again to our children about the values. What are the values in Igbo society? We know that in Igbo land, the Igbo cosmology is made up of the living and the dead. And we believe that whatever you sow, you shall reap. You cannot sow orange to reap mango. Igbo believes in that. And what goes around comes around for the children, so that they will know that it's not just about making sure that Nisi Onyocha died. Onyocha is a human being. If the head falls, your own might fall the next day. It is not just about getting this. How did you make it? Because in our homes today, families don't bother about where it comes. Whether it is ripe, get, whether it is not ripe, it is all about priding ourselves to say, oh, we have. Apart from this, we have another big problem, and that problem, which could have been helped by technology today, is the Nollywood movie, the Nollywood industry. There is no group that releases Nollywood movies like the Igbo. But unfortunately, these movies portray the Igbo in bad light. I know some of these movies should have what you call the CSR, the social responsibility effect, but most of them don't. I had attended a conference where I met somebody from Zimbabwe. And once I introduced myself as Nigerian, he said, "Are you Igbo?" I said, "Yes." This young man started laughing. I said, "Why?" He said, "Your people are known for money rituals." I said, "How? How do he say in our movies?" Because there is no difference between these movies portrayed or shown to the rest of the world and what they presume is our culture. If we are acting a movie, maybe to show what happened before the coming of colonialism, we should indicate year so that somebody will know it is no longer modern time. But in these movies, contemporary movies today, you don't find any indication to tell you that this happened before in the primordial times. So for some other people outside our culture, they look at them as what obtains in our contemporary society. And it is very wrong. And it is not helping. Because even our youths don't even see it as something that was acted. They are looking at it as the way their people do, or the way they behave. Then you'll find out again that even as I say the family, today, because of we'll say crisis in Igbo land, you'll find that most of our children, just as Dr. Mbalisi said, don't even come home. I had one said it from, I was told it from Abia. I wanted him to work on the original, the history of his community, and he said he cannot. He was born and bred up in Lagos. He only came to the East because he was given admission at the University of Nigeria. I said you should go there. He said he doesn't go there. He don't even know the way. Is your father alive? Yes. Is your mother alive? They are all from Abia. The father travels to the village, the mother travels, but they don't. All this has to do with the fear instilled in our children by their parents. And I'm not saying that as people might say, they are very strong. But are you going to run away from them? How long will it take? When do you think it will be over? The more you run, the more the war strengthens. That some of them had their imbanku in Lagos. And that is the height of it all. You can't come home. The man will tell you he knew nobody down here, and his peers and business associates are in Lagos. It will be more convenient. He cannot guarantee their safety. In this regard. And there he tells stories about life and all this. How can these people understand what this old man was playing when they don't understand the language? Understanding the language is paramount, because by doing that, one will equally understand the facts about the language, the culture, the heritage, whatever, whether tangible or intangible, anything. But you can now be in a better position to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Professor Pei. So we'll move on now to just, reimagining Nigeria and Africa as a whole. How can understanding Igbo heritage help in improving the history, the concept of Nigeria in the modern times? Dr. Annie, do you want to start off on that?
Okay, how Igbo can help. You see, like we said a couple of things earlier, there are so many things about the Igbo. That is, the other time we were talking, Dr. Mbali talked about Emefiele and his book in Nigeria and Biafra Africa died. Understand? About the Igbo that fascinates scholars of Igbo history.
Nigeria, Africa died.
Yes, in Biafra Africa died. So there's so much in the Igbo that fascinates everyone that has history. One is the statelessness of a society that's at Igbo and their neighbors, and even this man's what is it? The record. Igbo and the Bibio speaking peoples of.
Could you start again? We had the network cut off. So could you start from in Biafra, Africa? In Biafra, Africa died.
Okay. Yes. I say that there are so many things about the Igbo that strikes anyone that approach Igbo history, Igbo cultural history. So many things about Igbo that strike them. There are a lot of things we can look at to situate Igbo within the context of Nigerian and African history. First is I mentioned earlier the statelessness of a society that developed a very formidable food production beyond subsistence level, iron technology, then long distance commerce. Yet they don't have a central governing body. They are stateless, but they developed very strong food security system where everybody produces beyond subsistence level. They also developed iron technology, and they also developed a long distance where they go and dispense of the excesses of their production. Then we also look at this uniformity in their culture, irrespective of dialects. I mentioned the Iwoji, for instance, Iwoji issue. Then the behavior of women across this area, where you see women that we are taught respect. Understand? Then you also look at irrespective of our openness to different cultures, we resist being dominated. The Igbo resists being dominated. Understand? So all these pickets can actually form a fulcrum of where one can begin to look at the Igbo in the essence of the Igbo. The Igbo, for instance, they are highly productive. They are highly enterprising. They are hardworking. It is they are aspects of our heritage. When you are growing up, you see your father working hard to produce. He also tells you along that path of working hard to produce. They don't do magic. They don't earn without working. They teach you how to work ethics and earn, and they grow with it. Understand? Then you see the women being very productive in their own area. They are taught respect. They are taught home management. They are also taught hard work. So that in the future they will also be of a helping hand to anyone that will marry them. So all these things forms part of our basis of which we look at Igbo culture history, and project it outside the world. Then you look at actually what caused the Biafra War, being dominated by a group. So these are things the Igbo resist. Anywhere we are, we work hard to establish ourselves within that environment. So these a few areas I'd like to look at, talk about, projecting Igbo history within the context of Africa and Nigeria and African history. Now, Igbo they've contributed a lot towards development. If you talk about nationalism, talk about industrialization, you talk about businesses. You also talk about Professor Opata talked about